everyone, my name is AJ, and I haven't come up with a good intro yet. Ladies, gentlemen, everything in between and beyond, we've finally gotten here. We've finally gotten to the point where I have designed all of the most major characters for the bed and breakfast for former baddies, and now I can finally do the final tweaks. For those who don't know, I'm working on a Hazbin Hotel AU called the Bed and Breakfast for Former Baddies, in which I am rewriting the entirety of the show. If you haven't already, I highly recommend that you watch all of my previous videos about the characters, which I have consolidated into a playlist on my channel. You're going to be a little lost without watching that first, but please watch that in a different tab. Don't exit out of this one, you'll kill my analytics. Sorry if I sound a little low energy today. It's really late at night, and also I just had a really intense friendship breakup over actually nothing. She's a psychopath. And I'm still mad about it. The thing about designing characters for any kind of project that you plan on actually making is that the first design is almost never the final, and that is true for all of my characters as well. Everyone makes mistakes and nothing is ever perfect, so I went through all of my designs one last time to fix up any mistakes or weird bits that I could find. Let's start with God. I don't remember who said it, but I remember seeing at least one comment that said I should make his skin space instead of rainbow to fit more with his theme of being everything and everywhere all at once, and I agreed with them. When I picked rainbow for his skin, I was still thinking more about people and the colors that people are and can be and whatnot than I was about his whole universe thing. My reasoning for things is weird, don't question it. I masked out all of the places I wanted to be space and plopped in an image of what I wanted. The problem was that it didn't look the way I wanted, so I deleted all of it and stepped away for a really long time. When I came back to it, I masked it all out again, and this time decided to do the painting of space myself instead of using copyright-free images like I had before. I didn't want to ditch the rainbow, so I put a clipping layer over my mask, painted in a quick pastel rainbow, lowered the opacity to make it really subtle, and after that I used a star brush to rough in the stars, lowered the opacity, did a second layer of stars, lowered the opacity but less, and then hand painted in a couple larger, brighter stars in various places. For Sarah, the only thing I wanted to change was her line art. I wanted all of my angels to have colored line art like they do in this show to indicate that they're glowing just a tiny bit. This was not an easy task because the original file died with my old computer, so I had to painstakingly scribble all over the line art on her body, wings, and hair. I decided on a darker bluish gray for the majority of her body, but did a darker brown on her skin. The bluish gray didn't contrast enough with her skin for my taste, but a darker brown looked terrible everywhere else, so I decided, screw it, 3 line art colors, skin, clothes, and everything else. Emily didn't need any changes. It's rare that you get a design right the first go, but I think I did an especially good job with Emily. I guess I could have removed the long hair in the back to improve the silhouette, but I still wanted her to look like Hazbin's Emily, so I left it the way it was. There were only 2 things I needed to change about Valentino. He needed stripes somewhere on his actual body, and his colors needed to be shifted ever so slightly. The reason for the stripes on the body is that Valentino's soul belongs to Velvet. More information about that in their redesign if you're curious. Since sinners always get at least one physical characteristic from their owner, he needed stripes on his limbs somewhere. I tried putting some on his hands like I did with Vox, but I hated it. Then I remembered, oh, he's got legs too, so I put them there instead. After that, he needed a very minor color change. The color I used on his coat was actually a red instead of a pink, so I just shifted the hue over slightly to make it pink instead to reflect this sin better. That was it, really. Velvet needed a lot more tweaks. Holy crap, my page just reloaded and it flashed into light mode for a little bit. My place is gone. I started with the most minor, which was toning down the amount of rainbow to make purple more prominent. Velvet's largest sin is envy, which is purple. Even though she has all of the sins like showing up somewhere. I think she's also easier to look at when the colors aren't perfectly balanced like they were before. That is something you generally want to avoid. In most cases, you don't want to have a perfectly equal amount of all of your colors. Sometimes it works, but not always. After that, I made her leg stripes go all the way up her legs. I think the way they cut off before looked really strange. I wanted her to have more animal bits to her too. I hate it when demons just look like regular people but with weird hair, eyes, or skin. Velvet is based very heavily on 2010's DeviantArt Sparkle Dog OCs, so she does already have paws with extra long claws, but I wanted to add more to her head. I thought her head looked very strange without ears, so I tried adding dog ears, which didn't show up in the speed paint for some reason, but rest assured, it looked terrible. So instead I made those spikes on the side of her head on her first wig into horns that are an actual part of her body. I have also finally decided on what killed her, which is pulling a Vaggie but on the other side, and she did it to herself. So she gets an X over that eye too. That's also a very DeviantArt era thing to do, and it was putting an X over the eye or something like that was also very common of old school Vivzy Pop to do, and I did want this to be kind of more referencing her really old style of designing things, because, you know, it's not good, but it is a vibe. The last thing I changed is her twin tails. Valentino also owns her soul in return, so she needed to get his heart-shaped antenna too. I think that the twin rainbow tails was too much, which is really saying something because she is intended to be too much, but alas, sometimes too much really is too much. I changed it to one black heart-shaped tail, which I like much better. It does make her look a lot more top-heavy than before, but I don't mind that. I think it just makes her look even shorter, and I like that. Vox was a struggle. The only thing I wanted to change was his hands. They were just really distracting and I didn't like them, but also the stripes were necessary, so I couldn't just get rid of them. I fiddled with that for a very, very, very long time. Just trying different iterations of the same thing over and over until finally I landed on 2 black stripes with 1 white stripe in the middle on the ends of his fingers. One other thing I want to say is that I think he has too many colors, but they all feel like they're necessary, so I can't get rid of any of them. Rosie is one of the few characters that I designed on this computer, which made her really easy to make tweaks to. The only thing I wanted to change is the color of her skin. I was struggling with her palette when I first made her, so I found a color palette online that I liked to use, which had blue in it as the non-red and yellow colors, so I just used that color. For the tweak, I decided to change it to a color that would be more natural of an anglerfish. It's like this gross, dead flesh type color. I kept the tips of her fins that bright, gaudy yellow and added a darker yellow in place of the dark blue. I also fiddled around with the color placement of the dress until I decided on something that I liked better than the original. Cherry Bomb didn't need any changes either. She's a character that I've designed more recently, so maybe eventually I'll see something I don't like and figure out something better to change it to, but for now she stays the way that she is. Mimsy didn't need any changes either. Carmilla and Lilith both needed such enormous changes made to them that I made entire videos dedicated to designing just them. The same thing with Vaggie, but she gets tweaks later on. Lucifer, Lucifer is in the future going to get a video completely dedicated to him because I made some massive changes, and also he gets a couple extra forms, so be on the lookout for that later. Eve needed some pretty big changes, not enough to warrant an entire video to herself, but yeah, she did get big changes. She is going to be our loot substitute because I think Adam and Eve should be together. I don't like the idea of them being separated. They're my OTP. I made some tweaks to her face first. I don't know what past me was thinking when she drew this, because that was terrifying. I wanted to make her look nicer and sweeter than I did before. I made her skin tone a lot darker as well. I wanted her to really look African, and Native Africans tend to be way darker than African Americans. Glad I fixed that. I hope that isn't racist. I don't know. I'm ignorant and stupid. After that, I made her line art light blue. It was actually from Eve that I decided to give all of the angels colored line art. I gave it to her originally so that we wouldn't lose any of the details in her hair, but I liked the way it looked so much that I had to give it to all of them. I also changed her lashes and eyebrows to silver so that you can actually see them. I love the way that this looks so much. She's so dang cute, and I think she looks way more expressive now. They're my favorite part of her design, with a close second being the gap in her teeth. I love that little gap. It gives her so much personality. I also gave her a second outfit. I first designed this outfit in a requests video. Eve is a kick-butt fighter that you definitely don't want to mess with, but she's also very traditionally feminine. She and Adam created gender roles completely by accident by being themselves. So I wanted to give her the princess moment she deserves. Her outfit is heavily inspired by Egyptian silks, but she's also got a cotton underdress on for modesty's sake. I made the skirt for that one look kind of like leaves as a reference to the grass skirts she and Adam used to wear. Now that the line art is light, you can actually see all the arm and leg hair. Eve's a caveman at heart. That'll never change. She doesn't shave. You'll be lucky if you get her to bathe. In this outfit, you can also more easily see that the angel that created her heavenly body made several mistakes. They made her feet really teeny and her hands too big and too long. That was the price that had to be paid in order to almost give her a nose. This time I did remember to include her halo in the reference. Her halo is made of angelic bronze. I just really love the way it looked, and I think it matches her outfit really well. Adam doesn't get a second outfit. He is ready to drop everything at any moment and get to work. The only time he even takes his mask off is when he's at home. He's extreme, even for heaven's standards. He made a mistake once and he has never forgiven himself for it. I made his line art gold, which really makes him look like he's glowing, and I love it. I also included his halo on the sheet. I swear, I always forget them every single time without fail. His halo is made of angelic gold to indicate his status as a prophet. I also changed his underskirt to be a simpler shape so it's easier to draw over and over again. I actually prefer it the other way, but sometimes you need to make sacrifices for the good of your hands. Now it's Nifty's turn. First change I made is that her brain is now made of worms. I don't remember who said that. But someone said, what if brain was worms? And I love that idea, honestly. After that, I gave her hands. As much as I loved her without them, this is a convenience thing for me. I did keep the pincers. This time though, they're connected to her arms near the elbow. They're also longer than her arm, which will force her to use them and still make it hard for her to use her hands, but now it's not completely impossible, which will make it way easier for me to draw her holding anything. I took the choker away because I didn't want it to be part of the uniform anymore. It also just really doesn't fit Nifty's time period. I tried giving her a second bandana around her neck like she had in the show, but I couldn't make it work without cluttering up the design, so I took it away and made the skin on her neck black instead. I also changed her apron to be cream colored with white fringe instead of just making it pure white to make it a little easier on the eyes. For Husk, all I did was roll his sleeves up. That's it. I just wanted to show off more arm fluff and give him a little more personality in the way that he dresses. I also changed his claws to be cream, like his face, instead of pure white. I don't know why it wasn't like that before. It must have slipped my mind. Next is Serpentious. I was originally going to leave him as is because I think his design is pretty alright the way it is. There was one thing I didn't like though, and that was how I did his shirt. I really didn't want to add any more colors to his design at the time, but the bright yellow just really doesn't look good with that cream color, so I introduced a new yellow, shifted the color of the cream a bit, and then finagled with the color placement until I got something I liked. I also changed the color placement on his arms now that we have a new color, so that they contrast a little bit more with his skin. We don't use as much of that light red anymore, and I like it just I like it way better. Then it makes them look more like they're not really a part of him. They're separate, and I like that better. One thing I wanted to add was a power source for the arms. Since Penus is heavily inspired by steampunk futuristic stuff, I originally thought that the arms would be steam powered. I tried giving him a couple water tanks on his back that would pump water through the arms as steam so that they could move. I decided though that I didn't really like that because I didn't want to mess around with having to draw wires and clutter the design up more, especially since his arms already have so much detail. So I changed my mind. I've been watching a lot of Arcane recently. Don't give me spoilers, I'm not quite done with the second season yet. And I thought back to Savika's arm. I'm not fully certain how her arm is powered, but it has these little compartments for shimmer that I'm pretty certain keep it working. Whatever the case, it inspired me. I thought it would be cool if Penus' arms were powered by his venom. He milks his fangs into these tiny little jars and slots them into compartments on the shoulders. The venom runs through the arm's motors and joints, keeping them powered and also keeping them slicked up so that they don't get all rusty and hard to move. The venom needs to be changed out frequently, so if anyone were to try and steal his arms, they would be useless to them. I think he'd do something similar with all of his machinery so it can't be stolen and used against him later at a later date. The Egg Boys needed some tweaks too, but not to their designs. They needed some tweaks to their names. For those who don't know, the Egg Boys are one person split into multiple alters. When I first designed them, I only had a name for Frank and the rest were just numbered, but I do want to give them actual names. In universe, they will all start with just numbers that Penus gave them, except for Frank, who insisted on naming himself and being called by that name. Over time, as Penus' character arc goes on and the boys grow along with him, they'll each get names, which I have now written down. From what I understand, alternate personalities always appear for a reason, so I've also included a reason and a role that each alter exists to fulfill. I also gave our resident protector, Snegboy, a tail poking out of his shell. I want you all to know right now that the egg part is not their real body. Their real bodies are hidden inside the eggs, so in reality, they do look different from each other, but they all wear the same shell. I wanted to change Angel's arms. I wanted to make certain he had the right number of arms for a spider, which is 8 total limbs. So when I initially designed him, I gave him 2 spider legs on his back. I don't like them anymore. It was a good idea, but it looks weird for him to have a second set of regular arms, but then one random set of spider arms. There were 2 ways that I could have changed this. I could have gone with 4 spider limbs on his back like I did with Cain, video in the cards if you want to see that, or I could turn the back arms into regular arms. I went with the second option. It was while I was fixing that I had noticed that I had gotten the stripes wrong on the bottom set of arms for his second form, which I promptly fixed as well. Just like with Valentino, I shifted the bright pinkish red to be more of a regular pink instead of red to keep in line with my color rules. I also added an hourglass shape that Black Widows have to his second outfit, and I really like that. I think that looks cool. Alastor didn't need any changes on his base design. I made one change to his demon form, and that was splitting the skull in half and putting some hair on the skull so he doesn't look quite so bald, and so that if I ever do animate his transformation, it'll be a little easier to do since all the hair would have to do is shrink instead of disappearing completely. I only made 2 changes to Vaggie. Like I said earlier, she and Carmilla both had such massive overhauls that they got their own dedicated video, so I was mostly happy with this. I changed the color of her angelic liner, which wasn't easy because I don't have the raw file anymore. She and Carmilla were the last 2 things I ever drew on my older computer, and it's a miracle that their speed paints ever made it into a video at all, because I had to do the the recording in my new apartment. So thank you, God. Looking out for me, big guy. So I had to scribble over all of her liner as best I could until I had it all done. One other thing I added was her usual floating X over her eye. I initially left it off for reasons that I don't actually have. I added it back in because I've added an X over Cherry Bomb's death wound and decided, you know what? Everyone gets one now. At least if they got shot. My only problem with the X that she had initially in the old design over the eye was that it was unique to Vaggie. Alastor had an X too, but it only popped up when he was using his powers. I think that if he got shot there, then it should be there the whole time. So now she's got her X, and it's always going to be there like it should be. Now for our most important character, Charlotte Morningstar. I drew Charlie such a long time ago, and her initial art now pains me. She didn't need any massive tweaks, but I had to fix that drawing. I simplified her wing shards a bit, changed the way that I rendered her face underneath her glasses, and simplified her tail. The biggest change I made was to her legs. I initially drew her with these really weird long socks, but they didn't go over the feet because she's got goat hooves. I think they looked terrible, and really they made no sense. So I changed it so that now she has a gradient on her legs instead, with the darker part being up top. I also changed the color of her undershorts to a dark gray so you could see them, but they wouldn't show up as dramatically as if I lined them with white. I also made an edit to her dragon form so that she's mostly a black dragon with light gradients on her face, hands, and feet. I also took off one of her claws and stuck it on her back foot to more closely resemble her usual goat feet. I think this redraw really puts into perspective just how much I've grown as an artist since I started the series. My hoof drawing skills especially have come a really long way. I'm really glad you've all come with me on this journey from start to finish, and hopefully you'll be along for the ride into its final evolution. Ladies and gentlemen, everything in between, animals and plants, I am happy to announce that the bed and breakfast for former baddies is currently being written. Part of the rough draft is already up on my Patreon for you to read at the highest tier. I'm going to be creating it in the same way that I've done for the audio version of An Arrangement Was Made, but this time with real voice actors from day one. Speaking of voice actors, we now have voice actors for everyone in the cast for An Arrangement Was Made. The third part should be coming out soon. I'm still in the process of editing it and doing all the art for it and stuff. Bed and Breakfast for Former Baddies is going to be taking much longer to come out than the other one, because unlike with AAWM, I am going to be writing the entirety of Season 1 before I release anything to the public, and I will be doing multiple drafts if necessary. As much as I love An Arrangement Was Made, it is not my best work. It's a far more casual project, and it has a lot more mistakes than the Bed and Breakfast and for Former Baddies will probably have. I'm bringing my absolute A game for this project, and I cannot wait for you all to see it. I want to send an extra special thank you to my financial supporters, JRDS, Mercer Scott Holt, Stephen Drake, Jay Draws, and Silent Savvy. You are all the greatest. I will see you next week in a super cool video solely dedicated to Lucifer's tweaks. Commission me. See ya!